Good afternoon, everyone. Today's Friday, April 20th, and we're hopefully doing one of the last weekly legislative updates for the 2018 legislative session, as they are now officially in overtime as their per diems ended on Tuesday the 17th, which means their clerks no longer are employed there, nor do they have any per diem for their expenses for living and travel expenses for those senators that live outside the greater Des Moines or central Iowa area that have to stay down there rather than drive home to and from home every day. So that usually tends to get them sped up a little bit, as does the nicer weather, as those involved with agriculture want to at some point in the near future get out into their fields and start planting if the snow will ever stop. But getting in onto the policy points, it's important to note this week that there has been progress, but it just hasn't been so far as looking at the fact that bills have necessarily been produced. Some have been in the House. Appropriations bills were proposed in the House, 5 of the 10, so half of the bills have been proposed. They, 6 of the 10. They passed 5 out of the House Appropriations Committee, but they just proposed the standings bill, which is always one of the tougher bills because it's really the Christmas tree bill where people try to get a lot of their different things that they have interests in on. So that's the first crack at it as far as the House goes, but it hasn't gone in front of the whole committee yet, so there's still much to be done with that to make sure it gets through committee and then can be brought to the House floor, as well as those other 5. Plus, there's the other 3 or 4 budget bills that still have to be passed through the House to kind of complete what they need to do for the appropriations process. And it's important to note that within that appropriations process is embedded the tax reform discussion. So there's, trilateral, conversations going on with the governor's office, this House and Senate leadership in both ways and means, and just general leadership in both chambers as to what a tax reform package will look like. Frankly, we don't have a lot of information to share on that, as they're being very tight-lipped about it, but we continue to try to make sure corporate tax reform is included in any proposal, as the Senate has pushed for that, but the House has been a little less committal, well, not less committal, they have been non-committal on including corporate tax reform, as the bill they came out with last week did not include it. So we'll continue to monitor that situation. And as I said, there's a little bit more activity going on in the House as they've passed some of their appropriations bills. The Senate, on the other hand, hasn't passed a single appropriations bill out of committee. They do have their big target budget number that they will build everything off of, but no formal Senate study bills or Senate files have gone through the Senate Appropriations Committee. So we hope that they're working everything out, so then when they are proposed, it's a little bit more smooth sailing than it may be if all the kinks aren't worked out. But formally, we haven't seen any of their budget bills. We just know that they do have their budget target set for the big number for the FY 2019 budget. Also important to note, as they have those trilateral discussions with the budget and the tax reform, we're led to believe that it's about a $5 million difference, as well as the differences in the tax reform proposals and some other issues that they're going to have to come to terms on. But we do remain hopeful that they can hopefully come to terms with those important pieces and then hopefully be adjourned by the end of the month or within a couple weeks. That would be ideal for not only those individuals in the legislature as they want to get out and campaign, as well as, like I said, the agricultural side of things, people getting out into the fields. But that's going to be a big important piece of it, as well as the fact that the primary election is coming up very quickly on June 5th, and a lot of them do want to get out and campaign. So we will see how quickly they are able to move forward in the coming weeks. So that pretty much concludes my update for this week. Hopefully we'll have some more clarity on the appropriations and tax reform discussion next week. But as we move into yet another extra week in the legislative session next week, we look forward to the continued debate in both the Senate and House and the governor's office on appropriations and tax issues, and we hope to have some good news next Friday. So please come back and watch us again next week. Thanks, and have a nice weekend.